In this lesson, we're going to learn about using the dodge, burn, and sponge tools. These tools allow you to increase or decrease the exposure and the saturation of a specific part of your image. This is similar to what we did with the adjustment brush in Camera Raw when you're editing raw images, but this is for images just right within Photoshop that aren't raw. So go ahead and open up this YouTube thumbnail in G. This is a photo of me as we rode some cool electric bikes in G, a town on the north side of Lake Leman or Lake Geneva in Switzerland. Actually, this is where some of my family members live. And let's go ahead and choose these different tools to see what they do. If I select the dodge tool right here, which looks like a little pin drop right there, I have a brush now. And you can brush on, and I'm just going to do it really quickly, brush on, and it increases the exposure of whatever I brush on. And I undid that, but I can actually do that once and keep going. It will increase the exposure for every time you click and brush. I'm going to go back to the start and just click history and then open. To explain a little bit more, up here we have our range that we're affecting, so you can affect the shadows, midtones, highlights, and then the exposure adjustment. If you want to really crank up the exposure, crank this up to 100. See what happens now. It really brings up the exposure of whatever I paint on. If I change this to highlights, it's only going to affect the highlights. So see, I'm painting on things and it's affecting the highlights more than the darks. I'm going to undo that. Same with the shadows. If I paint this on, I'm still painting on everything like I did before, but it's only really affecting the darks. And this is cool when you have an image where maybe you shot a group photo, but some of the faces are in the shadows and you want to bring up the exposure of just those shadows. You can paint on just on the faces and that will bring up those darks. I'm going to do the midtones, and just to show you exactly when I would do this is I would paint on my face a little bit right there just to make my face pop just a little bit. The burn tool does the opposite. The burn tool decreases the exposure. So again, you have your range, you have your exposure. If I do 100%, it really darkens things. If I do 50% or less, it darkens just a little bit. So say I want to actually darken the sky, I can just go paint up the sky right here. If I want to affect the sky even more, I can choose highlights and then paint the sky. So I can make that look like even more of a cloudy day. The sponge tool is kind of a similar concept, but instead of affecting exposure, it affects saturation. So if I have my mode selected as desaturate and my flow as 50%, it's going to decrease the saturation. Right now it has only vibrance selected, so it doesn't desaturate too much. It only minimizes the fully saturated bright colors. So if I do paint over my jacket, it does really affect my jacket, but it's not really affecting the other colors in this image. If I uncheck vibrance, then it's going to actually affect all of the colors that I brush on. So if I also increase the flow to 100%, and then paint on, you can see that I can actually make the rest of the image desaturated. And I'm going through and I'm clicking and brushing on, and then unclicking, and then clicking again, and brushing on, maybe changing the brush size, get in here, desaturate this background, desaturate around my head, desaturate this green right here. Now there's different ways to do this to make the background desaturated, but this is one of them. And maybe I want to actually saturate this sign so that this sign stands out a little bit more how it was when I was actually there. So something like that. Okay, so that was a quick demonstration of what these tools do, but hopefully now you understand what they do, and you'll find times when they actually come in handy. And at the end of this lesson, I'll be showing you and walking through a specific photo where I would use these tools more.